The boardroom reeked of fear. Not panic fear, because panic is loud. This was quiet. Men whispering into dead earpieces. A shattered glass wall leaking cold wind into the room. And Jason Statham, sleeves rolled up, shirt still clean, standing calmly beside a toppled espresso cart. A broken watch lay near the table. Crushed. Two men sat slumped in leather chairs, eyes wide, as if they just witnessed a ghost show up on the wrong side of their own billion-dollar play. On the floor, the senior partner, Dalton Briggs, had dropped to his knees, begging into the security console. "Let me back in. I didn't know who he was. He never said please." Jason didn't look at him. He was busy pulling a black keycard from the inner lining of a coat no one remembered him wearing. The room's biometric lock had reset. He didn't knock. He just stepped out and let the alarm sing. 2 days earlier, 7:42 a.m. The elevator opened on floor 73 of Haverson Equity Holdings. A billion-dollar firm wrapped in 360 degrees of chrome, silence, and sociopathic ambition. The board was scheduled for a crisis meeting. A defense logistics acquisition had gone sideways. Someone needed to take the fall or spin the win. Jason walked out of the elevator unnoticed. No briefcase, no assistant. Just work boots, a plain shirt, a tucked-in pass clipped to his belt. The receptionist blinked. "Sir, you're not cleared." He nodded once. "Here for the 800. She scanned the log. Name Jack Harlow. Title Freight Efficiency Consultant. Security policy didn't flag it. She hesitated, then handed him a guest badge. The boardroom was a cathedral of silence and leather. 13 chairs. 12 filled. The final seat at the end of the table stayed empty on purpose. Dalton Briggs, the board's attack dog, stood before a digital wall of numbers. "We're bleeding on 2 fronts," he snapped. "Boeing pulled, Lockheed stalling. We need someone to blame or better yet sell." The others mumbled. One suggested cutting from the logistics division. Another dissolved the subsidiary. That's when Jason Statham stepped in. Not loud, just present. And the room changed. Dalton turned, blinked. "Who the hell are you?" Jason didn't flinch. "Efficiency consultant. Your office scheduled me for 800. Dalton scoffed. "This is a financial crisis meeting, not a supply chain brainstorm. Get out." Jason calmly placed a folder on the table. Page 2. No one moved. Jason flipped it himself. Inside, a flowchart showing 6 shell companies routing defense payloads under the Haverson umbrella. With one red circle. An offshore node tagged EDNLOGSGR. Dalton's eyes twitched. No one in the room was supposed to know about Edenlog. Jason looked directly at him. "You're shipping through black flag jurisdictions. That's a war crime waiting for a currency shift." The room stiffened. Dalton covered fast. "Security, remove this man." But Jason didn't move. He calmly reached into the folder again and placed a second document on the table. A non-disclosure agreement. Signed by Dalton. The security guards didn't arrive, because Jason had already requested a silent clearance sweep through the building's server 3 hours earlier. As Jack Harlow, he'd been assigned temporary access for logistics optimization. They never checked the name behind the login. Not thoroughly, because if they had, they'd have found a locked record. A sealed acquisition made 5 years ago by a dormant firm in Singapore. A firm that now owned 32% of Haverson Holdings. The largest silent share. Triggered only under internal misappropriation conditions. And Dalton had just triggered it. "Mr. Harlow," another board member said, suddenly polite, "perhaps we should step outside." Jason turned his head once. "No need." He tapped the table. The digital wall behind them flickered. A new file opened. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a security audit. Timestamped 1 hour ago. Showing 3 offshore accounts, all linked to Dalton Briggs. Each loaded with recent activity. Each showing incoming deposits from the very contracts Dalton claimed were stalling. Silence flooded the room. Dalton went pale. "You have no right." Jason stepped closer. Correction. He placed a black card on the table, embossed with a symbol none of them recognized, a hive-shaped seal with one red eye in the center. I'm not a consultant. He turned to the room. I'm your shadow clause, and you just gave me control. Dalton lost it. You don't know who I am. Jason grabbed the edge of the espresso cart and flipped it. The glass shattered. Coffee flew. The board scrambled. Security finally arrived too late. They opened the door to see Dalton on the floor, bleeding from a broken glass cut to the hand. Jason stood untouched. He calmly turned to security. He's resigning. Dalton screamed. He doesn't belong here. One of the guards turned his wrist and checked his wristpad. Authorization override appeared. Issued internally. Timestamp 6 hours prior. By a level Z clearance. Jason nodded once. I'll need the room. The guards froze, then stepped aside. Dalton was dragged out, bleeding, screaming. Jason sat down in the empty chair, the one at the end of the table. No one spoke. He leaned back, then opened a folder marked Phase II Restructure. Jason Statham didn't raise his voice, didn't even look up when the phone rang. Boardroom silence. The older execs tried to read through the restructuring folder, but half of them couldn't focus, couldn't breathe. The documents weren't suggestions, they were surgical cuts. 2 VPs removed, 1 shell company dissolved, and Dalton's remaining board privileges nullified. The phone kept ringing. Finally, one of them picked it up. Haverson Equity, Boardroom 1. The voice on the line was sharp. New York accent, authority behind every syllable. Put me on speaker. He didn't wait for agreement. Whoever the hell is sitting in that chair, this is Damon Schill from Midtown Compliance. Effective immediately, you are ordered to cease operations under Clause 9E. Your presence violates federal code. Jason looked up slow. The board members looked relieved, a rescue call. But Jason didn't blink. He leaned forward. Damon. Silence on the line. Then, how do you know my name? Jason pressed a button. The boardroom screen behind him lit up. A photo. From 2009. Black and white. A group of 7 men in a lab with a single glowing console. Jason stood among them. So did Damon. You designed HALSYS, Jason said quietly. The Haverson Logic Infrastructure System. You built the spine, and you forgot who sat behind you. Damon went cold. No, that system was sold in 2014 under dummy contracts to avoid regulation, Jason continued, then reacquired by DLAS1 Holdings, which, if you trace hard enough, links back to me. The screen shifted. Ownership tree. At the top, JS Ventures. Damon cursed. You can't do this. Jason locked eyes with the room. I already did. In the control room 3 floors down, Tech Officer Alicia Cho got the alert. HALSYS control transferred. She tapped furiously. Tried to revoke Jason's access. Tried again. Nothing worked. The firewall wasn't breached. It had folded inward. She turned to her superior. Sir, we've been overwritten. He didn't hack us. He authored the override. Back in the boardroom, Jason stood up. Rolled his cuffs twice. Clause 9E doesn't apply here. He tapped the folder. Clause 12 does. The room froze. No one invoked Clause 12. Because Clause 12 was hostile succession. It meant a full board reset. He walked to the window. Looked out over the skyline. The others exchanged panicked glances. This company, Jason said calmly, was founded on war logistics, but somewhere along the way, the war became internal. He turned, and you all got fat on fake leverage. Board member Albrecht stood up. You don't know what you're dealing with. This firm moves governments. Jason walked over in 2 steps. And yet, you couldn't even move a container through Bahrain without bribing your own scheduler. He flipped a document onto the table. Wire transfer logs. Multiple currencies. Stolen timecodes. Albrecht's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Jason leaned closer. You bought silence, I bought the building. That's when the alarms triggered. Not the normal ones. Manual override code, room purge. A system meant to protect the board in case of hostage scenarios. The glass began to fog. Doors locked. Vents hissed. One of the execs gasped. "They're trying to gas us." Jason held up one finger, paused, then pointed to the sprinkler unit. It clicked once and sprayed harmless vapor. The purge had been rerouted. In the server room, Alicia stared at the blinking command line. Purge neutralized, override JSVA2 active. Jason had even anticipated a purge protocol. She stood up slowly. "He's not trying to take control." Her voice was a whisper. "He's taking us offline." Back in the boardroom, Jason walked to the panel behind the screen. Entered a 9-digit code. The lights flickered. A second set of screens lit up. Project Hexcool. Half the board leaned forward. "What is that?" Jason looked them dead in the eye. "It's what you buried in 2017, along with every veteran who refused to play your game." The screen showed schematics. Not weapons. Warehousing units. Each one linked to failed aid deliveries. Each one connected to Haverson-signed manifests. Meant to supply refugee zones. Instead, rerouted to black markets. Jason tapped a control on his watch. 3 minutes. Albrecht rose again, shaking. "You can't leak this, it'll destroy everything." Jason turned. "I'm not leaking it." Pause. "I'm handing it to the people who were supposed to receive those supplies." One board member stammered. "You're a vigilante." Jason walked past him. "I'm a janitor." The elevator on the far side dinged. Security detail, the real one, rushed in. One of them raised a hand to Jason. He nodded. They didn't arrest him. They stood at attention. The board finally realized. Jason had been planted long ago. Not as a mole. As a failsafe. He walked to the head of the table again. Pulled a pen from his inner pocket. It wasn't a pen. It was a data key. He drove it into the board console. A loading bar appeared. Asset transferred 12%. Board member Thornby shouted. "We'll sue, we'll freeze every account." Jason didn't look at him. "You froze them 2 hours ago. I thawed them 30 minutes later." Thornby screamed. Jason tapped his wrist. 25 seconds. The countdown hit 0. All screens in the building went black. Except one. Control transfer complete. Jason exhaled once. Then looked back at them. "All of you stay, finish your coffee, file your insurance claims." He turned toward the door. Paused. "Next time you kick out the janitor, check if he built the floor you're standing on." Then walked out. No one stopped him. The command came at 12:09 p.m. Issued from an off-grid relay in upstate New York. No signature, no timestamp. Just a pulse. Target STATHM Jason alias Jack HARLOW. Directive wipe and contain. It was executed within 60 seconds. Bank accounts flagged. Passports revoked. Travel records backdated and shredded. CCTV scrubs began across 3 continents. The goal wasn't just to erase Jason. It was to make it look like he'd never existed. Back in the Haverson building, the boardroom sat in silence. The lights were still dimmed. The screens blank. Albrecht sipped scotch from a coffee mug. "I warned him," he muttered. "You don't touch Damon's territory." A younger board member paced in circles. "They can't just scrub someone from reality like that, right?" Albrecht stared at him. "They already did it to 26 others. You ever wonder why the beekeeper records stop in 2016? But Jason wasn't running. He was already on the roof, standing still as wind tore across the helipad. The skyline lit behind him like a war in slow motion, buildings blinking, air traffic grounding. He held a small phone in one hand. Secure line, no GPS. He dialed 3 numbers, then waited. No ring. Just a voice. You knew they'd try this. Jason didn't answer. The voice continued. You want us to intercept? Jason exhaled. No, let them come. He ended the call. 3 black SUVs pulled off the Manhattan Express ramp. No license plates. One had a reinforced case in the trunk. Inside it, a sealed file, stamped in red, Vein Alpha off script, and under it Jason's old ID. Not from Haverson, not from any agency, but from something deeper, something the government buried, because they couldn't control it. In a bunker below D.C., Damon stood watching a wall of live feeds. All feeds scrambled. Jason's face unrecoverable. He slammed a fist onto the console. "You said this would work." The analyst beside him flinched. He preempted it. Damon turned. What? He deleted himself in 2017. Root level. No digital ties. His reentry into the system was a ghost signal traced to a deadman's loop. Damon's blood ran cold. Jason wasn't back. He'd never left. The black SUVs reached the building. 3 men exited. Not agents. Contracted cleanup. Untraceable. They took the freight elevator. No alarms. But halfway up, the power cut. All lights shut off. Elevator froze between floors. The emergency override didn't work. They tried the manual hatch. Welded shut. The leader hissed. He knew. Jason was no longer on the roof. He was inside the penthouse suite on floor 76. A space no one remembered leasing. Because it wasn't leased. It was sealed. 10 years ago. Before the company's name even changed. The suite's walls were soundproofed. The glass mirrored. Inside, a single chair. A war map on the wall. And a lockbox with Jason's old unit tag on it. He opened it. Inside, a badge. Tarnished. Half-burned. Vein ghost unit. Light called from across the water. He wasn't supposed to. He'd gone underground. But the broadcast had reached him. Jason, they activated Widow Code 7. Jason nodded silently. You good? Locke asked. I'm done hiding, Jason replied. Then hung up. At the same moment, in a storage archive across the city, a screen blinked to life. It hadn't been active in 6 years. Dust coated the keyboard. A single file opened automatically. Titled, Red Iris. And a photo. Of a woman. She was staring into a surveillance cam, a fresh scar on her cheek. Underneath the image, one sentence. I remember the house you burned. Jason saw the file, live update on his watch. He froze. She was alive. Meanwhile, Damon called the last man he trusted. A fixer named Colt. Not an agent, not a soldier. Just a solution. Colt answered mid-flight. Target. Jason Statham. Colt blinked once. Then smiled. You're serious? Damon grunted. You get one shot, do it clean, quiet, make it like he never came back. Colt smiled again. Copy that. But Colt didn't know the truth. Jason didn't come back to be seen. He came back to smoke something out. And it had worked. Because Red Iris was online again. And she only came online for 2 reasons. Memory return. Or kill switch. Jason stood now in the lobby of a storage warehouse in East Brooklyn. Metal walls. No staff. No lights. Just one crate. He opened it. Inside, a girl's backpack. Tiny faded pink. Burnt along the edges. He touched it once. A small key was sewn inside. He removed it. Turned. And someone stood in the shadows. A woman. Older now. Eyes sharper. She stepped forward. You burned the wrong house. Jason didn't flinch. He looked at her. I was told it was empty. She tilted her head. It was. Silence stretched. Then Jason lowered his hand. I'm not here for you. She didn't move. I know, but I'm not here for you either. Pause. I'm here for what you forgot. She held up a second key. Identical. They fit together. Back at Haverson HQ, the servers exploded into static. Every file tied to Jason gone. Every backup. Ghost wiped. and in its place a single message. You can erase a name, but memory rebuilds. The final lock hissed open. A steel panel slid sideways, revealing a narrow staircase carved into solid concrete. Jason Statham stepped forward, light from a hanging bulb cutting across his shoulders. The woman, Red Iris, didn't speak. She just followed. The air smelled like burnt film and old paper. This place hadn't been touched in a decade. Not since Jason sealed it himself. But something inside was still breathing. Not literally, not human. Just awake. Damon stood inside a Department 9 satellite command station. His tie was gone, jacket thrown over a chair, sweat soaked into his collar. He stared at the blinking red interface. Clearance, Failsafe active. Are you sure? The tech asked. Damon didn't blink. He crossed the line. Which line? Damon smiled coldly. The one we buried. He keyed in the command. Omega burn protocol. Jason and Iris reached the bottom of the stairs. A vault door stood ahead. No keypad. Just a metal slot. Jason pulled the fused key from his coat. Inserted it. It clicked once, then fell apart in his hand. The vault door groaned. And opened. Inside, not weapons, not files, but a memory archive. Rows of analog tapes. Handwritten dossiers. And one final canister at the center. Inside the canister, a strip of microfilm. Iris stepped forward. I thought you destroyed this. Jason shook his head. I destroyed the copies. He lifted the microfilm. Held it to the light. The tiny film was covered in hand-drawn schematics. Vane wasn't just a unit. It was a fail-safe program built to reactivate under global collapse. Jason wasn't a cleanup man. He was the last witness. The ceiling creaked above. Jason's hand shot up. Down. He pulled Iris behind a concrete pillar just as the upper hatch blew inward. Gas hissed. Then boots. 3 of them. Operators. Not Damon's. These were internal Failsafe contractors. Trained to silence ghosts. They moved fast. But Jason was faster. He grabbed the fire axe from the wall. Swung low. First man dropped before he saw it coming. The second raised his rifle. Too late. Jason disarmed him with one twist, then turned the weapon into a blunt force elbow. Blood hit the ceiling. Only the third remained. He aimed. And stopped. Because Iris had a pistol to his neck. Jason nodded. The man dropped his weapon. Jason picked up his headset. Spoke into it. You missed. Then smashed it underfoot. Back at the station, Damon saw the signal cut out. No heartbeats returned. No comms pings. Just static. He leaned on the console. God help us. Jason and Iris stood in the vault. Around them, remnants of an erased history. He pulled one tape. Labeled HXOL5 Operation Forget. It had his voice on it. From 2017. He'd left himself a message. He played it. If you're hearing this, they found you, but they don't remember why. They don't know who you are because you gave them that luxury. Now take it back. Silence. Then, the real weapon isn't this room. It's memory. Let them drown in what they forgot. Jason looked at Iris. She nodded. I'll distribute. He handed her the canister. Burn half, spread the rest. She vanished into the stairwell. Outside, Jason walked into the open air of the Brooklyn warehouse yard. 3 black drones hovered low, silent, waiting. Each armed. Each live. Jason didn't flinch. He stepped into the center. Looked straight up. And raised both arms. He wasn't surrendering. He was inviting. Damon watched the feed. Take him. One tech hesitated. But sir, if he's holding the originals. Damon cut him off. If he gets out of that yard, we lose the narrative. The tech nodded. Firing in 3. Jason didn't move. 2. His foot shifted slightly. 1. The drones fired. But the bullets never hit. A 4th drone, unmarked, intercepted midair. EMP burst. All three attack drones dropped like insects. Jason didn't look surprised. He turned once, looked toward a nearby rooftop. A man stood there. Long coat. No face visible. Just a salute. Then gone. Jason walked away. Later that night, Damon's office went dark. A single envelope lay on his desk. No address. Inside, a copy of the microfilm. And a note. I'm not coming for you, I already came, you just forgot. Damon slumped in his chair. It was over. But he'd never sleep again. Jason boarded a freighter under a false manifest. Disappeared into fog. But somewhere in Eastern Europe, weeks later, a woman found a briefcase waiting at her door. Inside, one red folder, a cassette, and a note. Your brother was never dishonorably discharged. He was silenced. Now speak.